Hey there, everybody. I know there's a few of you at Facebook right now, so today we're going to be talking about glaze. So we're going to let everybody get in and get settled and bring your questions about glazes and all sorts of things. And that's what I'm here for. So, Patty Lewis, Jennifer Alara, seeing everybody coming in. So, yeah, today, hey, Jennifer, how's it going? I've got some glaze samples behind us, and we can talk about my Clayscapes glazes. Jessica's going to be doing some of that after this. We're going to be talking about glaze faults and defects, crazing, pinholing, blistering, firing schedules to get rid of those problems. Any kind of glaze issue you might have, any kind of question you might have, and yeah, chemistry, any kind of chemistry question you might have. So let's hear them all. So hey Gene, we can talk about all sorts of stuff. I can start showing glazes. I don't know. What do you guys want to do? I can start showing glazes. I've got all of my Clayscapes glazes here behind me. Hey, Nona. Hey, Val. How's everybody doing? Hey, Shelly. You have a BS in chemistry. Like a bachelor's degree or like a bullshit? So let's talk about a couple of things. We'll take pinholing, for example. And I know I talked about this a little bit yesterday on the kiln Q&A, but pinholing or and what happens is when you're and you want to make sure you could get pinholing. Sean, also like just that one. Blue. Debut Clayscapes potteries. To just add water. Those are every few weeks you're going to need to adjust, especially And I think we're looking at the speedball glazes, all the new colors for speedball. You'll be able to pre-order those with me. I don't have a place for them on the website right now. Those that guys and honor those that promo that we're running this week. So not a good feed. Uh-oh. When using my BIS schedule and I have a thermocouple negative offset, do I minus the number from the let your thermal guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of trying to catch up here, guys. Starting, you missed everything. To keep going. Let me text Kevin here. Yeah, thanks, Sherry. You use it a lower def broadcast. I feel bad. Might want to wait till the feed is better. Let me, yeah, it's still freezing. I'm gonna cut back to Jess to keep glazing, okay? Sorry, everybody. Hi, Nicole.
All right, everybody. So I'm really sorry. Drew's connection, something was off there. So I'm going to go ahead and continue glazing, and I will answer your glaze questions. Hopefully the connection is good for me on my end and you all have a good picture. We're good. So I don't have my Facebook comments up, so we got to get that up. But so this is what we'll do. Because Drew can't be here, what we will do is Drew will be watching. Hi, Drew. You watching? Drew will be watching, and he can answer the glaze questions by typing it in. And if anybody is on a different platform that Drew's not watching on, like on the YouTube platform, if you all have glaze questions, ask me. I will say your question out loud, Drew will hear it, and then he can answer it for you. So we're going to keep working. I know it's frustrating. Sometimes the internet just does what the internet wants to do, and we are all just stuck with it. So as you can see, I'm still glazing those bowls with the copper red glazes. This is the copper red, and I did put 4 thick coats on. You will want 4 thick coats too to get the best red, and I think this will do. I think this will be a nice, but a nice application of glaze, but we won't know until we get there. So Catherine says she tends to get a lot of crazing when she fires. What is she doing wrong? So I'll let Drew chime in, and I will also give my 2 cents. Crazing happens when you have a glaze fit issue, meaning your clay body and the glaze don't like each other. They're not necessarily compatible, or the temperature you're firing to doesn't work. So sometimes you need to go a little hotter if it's not working, or you might want to try a different clay. Or if you really love your clay, try a different glaze. Not all clays and not all glazes like each other, and that's just how everything is. And you just got to find a combination of clay and glazes that work well together. So if you use a glaze that I share with you, and the same clay I'm using, and you fire to the temp I'm using, you should get similar results. They might not be exactly the same, but they will be similar. Gotta be flexible. Exactly. We just gotta go with it. So here is the copper red. I'm gonna sit that over here. Ooh, there's a lot of glaze on that. And I'll just answer your questions. Drew is a glaze expert. No, he is. He knows a lot about glazes. I know a fair amount. I mean, I did take glaze chemistry in college, and I was a geology major, so I know a bit about minerals, and I've been running my own studio, making my own glazes for a couple decades now. So, you know, I can help out too, but we always have Drew to answer the questions if we run into trouble, right? So what brands are these glazes that I'm using right now? These are Amico glazes. That question comes from YouTube, and they're brand new ones that the sample pack that they were going to give out in NCECA this year, but because NCECA, which is the big National Ceramics Conference, was canceled, they didn't get that. They didn't get a chance to give them away. Are you asking about the Clayscapes glazes that Drew was talking about? So some of the glazes that he was talking about earlier are Clayscapes glazes. Some of them are my own glazes that they sell, so you can get my glazes through Clayscapes. And some of them are their own formulas. So could do a day 6 with Drew. Tomorrow, Drew, do you want to come on and do tomorrow? I'm going to be working tomorrow. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 carved mugs. I have 14 carved mugs that I have to hand color. They take about an hour each. So I have 14 hours of hand coloring ahead of me, and I'll be doing that tomorrow. And it's not a bad thing. It just takes the whole day. Can I talk about the oolites in the Amico glaze? I can talk about the oolites, and I have to tell you all, since I have been glazing with these new glazes, I haven't found a single oolite. So oolites are little hard balls that you get in some glazes. Amico has them, other companies have them, and they just happen as the glaze sits. I'm not sure if it's because it gets cold or they evaporate. I'm not sure which one does that because I don't know. Amico will tell us. We'll ask. But they've been working on getting rid of their oolites. And what you do, or what I do, is when a little hard ball of an oolite shows up, I just pull it off and then boonk, I just throw it away. Some people grind them up and put them back in the glaze, but I don't ever have so many, so I don't do that. So you're now using a mid-fire clay, and you just ordered my glazes, and you got your first L&L kiln. Woohoo! You will love it. You will love your L&L kiln. So your kiln has a negative thermocouple offset. Mine does too. Wait, I missed the rest of the question. Hold on, everybody. I got to leave screen because I got to pull it back down. I didn't get all the question. So I do a negative cone offset. So when you're using Drew's slow schedule, do you change the temperature in that you have already in there? So honestly, if you're going to use somebody's pre-programmed schedule, you usually just want to use that. Now, I think because your kiln, if you have a thermocouple offset, your kiln's firing a little too hot. So you don't want to mess with that because you want to keep the temperature lower, right? That's usually what you do because your kiln goes too hot. That's what I do when my kiln goes too hot. But Kevin is working on, You just keep going on with the chat. And Drew, okay, so Drew says email him. He'll get you all set up. But I would love to share that with other folks that might be having issues with their thermocouple. If they do a negative thermocouple offset, I have a negative cone offset. There's two different things that you can have in your kiln, and you can do a negative or a positive, and the negative just means my kiln was running too hot, so I had to offset it with the negative. So is there a better way to glaze the fire Christmas ornament, having students place them on bisque cookies, drips are reaching the shelf because they're messy glazers? Ah, yes. So my suggestion is you might want to try switching to using underglazes that won't run, and then if the kids are young, you might want to apply the clear glaze yourself just so you can control it, and that way they don't get the glaze everywhere. Underglazes are great because they're really stable, and then they can put the colors, if you use the Amico Velvets or the Speedball underglazes, and maybe the Mako, I haven't tested the Mako, you can put them on the back and they'll just leave a shadow. So they won't stick, they'll just leave a shadow. I'm not sure I understand offset or how to do it, but you might not need it, Barbara. So an offset is when you have a computerized kiln, and when you fire it the first time doing your kiln firing tests, it fires too hot. So you do a cone 5 test, but it's getting to 5.5, and that's too hot. So you need to bring it back down, and it just tells the computer inside that instead of cone 5 being 2167, if you do a 30-degree negative cone offset, it thinks that cone 5 is 2137. So it brings it down 30 degrees. And for me with my kiln, when I first got it, and that was in July, it was firing almost a whole cone hot. So I did a negative 35, I think it was a negative 35-degree cone offset, and I programmed that in so my kiln actually thinks cone 5 is cooler than it actually is, but it still fires perfectly because our heat work is what's doing the job, right? Our cones are melting, the glaze is melting, everything's working. Will underglaze over Potter's Choice run or flux? Ah, great question. If you are using the cobalt underglazes, something like a blue underglaze, it might run and flux a little bit with your glaze, but they often stay very stable. Let me show you an example. Kevin, will you get the Mayo Loco picture? It's the white picture with the flowers painted on it, I think straight ahead behind my wheel. Other wheel, baby, over there on the shelf. You'll see there's a whole series of the Mayo Loco pieces, and there's a picture, there's a plate, any of those. Yeah, so I did a class on the Mayo Loco with underglaze, so this is an updated version, and what I want to show you is if you look here, you will see the reds, and even the blues aren't really moving a lot there, but I went a little heavy on the inside of the rim with the blue, and do you see how we got fluxing and melting there? So with the blues, you tend to get fluxing. This is B-Mix with white glaze. It's actually Clayscape's cream. I dipped the entire thing in cream, and then I painted on the surface with underglaze. And you can see the underglaze will melt into the glaze, and it is really a nice way to do a decoration if you want to do a painterly decoration on top of a glaze. And it's just another way of decorating your pottery. And the blue did flux a little bit, but not, if we look at the sides, it didn't really flux on the little blue dots. So it shouldn't move too much. It should stay pretty stable, but you might get a little movement on the blues, sometimes on the black too, because it has cobalt in it. So how to do a cone offset. I actually have a class on ClayShare that shows how to do that, Barbara, and I walk you through all the steps on an L&L computerized kiln. And these are really for computerized kilns, not for manual kilns. So I have put 4 very thick gobby layers, and that's how you're supposed to do it with these copper reds. That is underglaze over PC. Frank, it's an underglaze over a Clayscapes glaze, but it works the same way. You could do a light color, so you need to have a light color base as your glaze. You could do a Potter's Choice glaze, so one of their white glazes or their really light colored ones, and then if you put your underglaze on top, yeah, what happens is when it reaches melting temperature, everything melts. The glaze melts, the underglaze melts, and here's our underglaze on the surface, here's the surface, right? As the underglaze melts, it melts into the surface. So it becomes part of it, and it's just the glaze. It's not underglaze anymore. It actually melts down in. It's pretty cool. And you can do that a lot. Break the rules. I love That's right. And always test. Break the rules, but always test. That's what I'll tell you. All right, so I did the 4 globby layers. We're going to see how this works out. Your kiln is overfiring when you do a cone 05, but when you do a cone 018, it's fine. So as it goes a little hotter, it just gets carried away and is going a little hotter. So what causes that? Drew, do you have a suggestion? Her kiln, when she fires it to 018, is perfectly fine. When she goes to 05, it's overfiring. And this is Hortensia over on YouTube. So we'll get back. Hold on, we'll get back to you. So I'm trying to read out. How do you use kiln cookies? You use PC glazes and have lost a few pots from running. Should the cookie be green or bisque, and how thick? I make them about 1/8 of an inch thick, and you want it to be bisque. So you want it to be a little disc of bisque-fired pottery that will just fit. Hold on, I'll grab something. It's not a cookie, but it will work as a cookie for this demonstration. So this is a little coaster, and what you will do is you'll make these little circle bits, and you put your piece on it. So what happens is it still will stick to the cookie. The glaze will run, and this has already been bisque, right? So the glaze will run and it will stick to the cookie, but you'll be able to break off the cookie and grind the glaze down. So it ruins the cookie. You throw it away, you can't reuse them, but it won't ruin your kiln shelf, and you can still grind your piece off. So the cookie catches those glaze drips. Now my suggestion is if you're having problems with glazing and it's running all the time, you might want to look at different glazes or lower your temperature, fire a little cooler. Yes, we have a question.
One from ClayShare. So painting with speedball or Amico underglaze applied over glaze will give that effect.
It will. And if you have a light glaze, this is Clayscape's cream. That's the white glaze I put on first. I applied my glaze just like I normally would, inside and out. So it was a white pitcher. It had nothing but white on it when I started. And then before you fire it, you just glaze it. This is part of the glazing process. And then you paint on it. So if you really want to see it, I have a class on tv.clayshare.com. It's called Mayo Loco. M-A-J-O-L-I-C-A is how we spell it, but we pronounce it Mayo Loco. There's other pronunciations, but it depends where you learn. And if you sign up for a free 7-day trial, if you're not a premium member, you can watch it for free and check out the other classes. You know, this really isn't a promo for my classes. That's not what I'm trying to get everybody to do, but that you could watch that and learn that technique. It's really easy, and it's a really great way to add surface decoration to your pieces. So share about glazing vitrified clay. You have some unglazed cone 10 vitrified pieces you want to glaze. Okay, so you can still glaze them. What will happen is because it has vitrified and the clay is no longer porous, it's hard for the glaze to soak in. So what you want to use is some people say warm your pieces first, so they'll like warm it in the kiln, but not very hot. You just want it warm to the touch. And that can help the glaze be absorbed in. What I do is I find glazes like the Potter's Choice glazes and the other Amico brush-on glazes, they are thicker formula. So you can really brush them on and they will stick. I do refires. Let me just show you an example. This isn't a refire, but let's just say this is a glazed piece. It's actually going to be less willing to accept a glaze as a vitrified pot because a stoneware pot is still got more of a tooth on it. So look at this. We can apply the glaze. It's sticking to it. So if it'll stick on this glazed cup, it'll stick on your vitrified pot. So what you do is you apply your first glaze. You might have to wait a little while, your first coat. You might have to wait a little while, apply your next coat until you get it to where you want it. Will it be as good as if you had originally glazed it before it vitrified? Hard to say. Most likely not. It'll be different. That's not necessarily bad, but it will be different. So yeah, that's what I would do with that. So Sandy uses a cookie slightly smaller than the bottom of the piece, It has allowed you to grind the dips off, but it doesn't protect your kiln shelves. So if you're someone who's worried you're using the cookie to protect your kiln shelf, that won't help. So if we look at the bottom, if I'm using a cookie, the glaze could run and just keep on going. Now you could use a thicker cookie. So if you're going to go really, really heavy with your glazing and you're worried that it's going to run and stick, maybe you make thick cookies, right? And you use them and make them the same size as the bottom, and that will help. But I always learned you want your cookie so that it absorbs the glaze, and then you pop everything off. But then again, I don't use cookies in my studio on a daily basis. I really don't. I just go ahead and make sure there's no glaze near the bottom, and I don't use runny glazes, or I try not to, right? So try spraying the vitrified with either starch or hairspray, right? And that can also work if you're applying it to a refire. So if you want to apply a glaze to a refire, then you can spray it with a hairspray or cornstarch. I mean, not cornstarch, starch for ironing, you know, ironing starch that we use. And that will help give it more tooth as well. So that's a great tip. Thank you for sharing that too. So let's see. Can you put kiln wash on your cookies? Of course. Yes, and you should. You should put kiln wash on your cookies. That will help. It will help the glaze come off the cookie. Sometimes their glazed piece. Sometimes even that, though, it will stick. Sometimes they still stick. It's just part of the process. But yeah, I think if you're into crystalline glazes, and some of you who are watching might be, crystalline glazes run, and you have to have them run to get that really nice effect. So you do a different kind of cookie. It's kind of like a dish cookie. It has a rim, and then it comes up. So think of it as a bowl that has a higher center that you put your pot in, and that holds the pot up. Kind of like this, but yet there's a trough to catch the glaze drips. And then you still can take it off and then grind it down. So that's a little different for crystalline glazes, but if that's something you want to try out, you can make those yourself, and you just look them up online, you'll find them. It'll help. So your cookies are thrown with a higher middle. Well, there you go. That's that kind of cookie I was talking about right there, thrown with the higher middle. A lot of times people will make just a little bisque circle cookie like this. All right. So yours are thicker, may reconsider. Whatever, if it's working though, if it's working for you, it's good. So Deborah only fires low fire, and our Clayscapes only for high fire. The Clayscapes glazes are for cone 5, cone 6. Yeah, they're not a low fire glaze. You could test them at low fire temps, but you might not be happy with the results. So I wouldn't, because I don't want you to buy them and spend the money on them and not be happy. So let's see. Can I do a class on spray and glaze? I'll do that. I'll get to this summer. I can do a spray and glaze. I only spray outside my studio, out back. So that's my kiln shed. This is the studio. That's the kiln shed where my gas kiln, my clay mixer, all my storage of materials is. But when I spray glaze, I do it outside. You need a really good ventilation system, and I do not have space in the studio to install one of those for spraying. So what I do is I just spray outside. I wear my respirator, so I have my mask on. I wear safety glasses to protect my eyes. I actually usually tie a kerchief on my head to protect my hair. Kevin's got pictures of me doing this, which I hope he doesn't ever show anybody else. But I'll be out there spraying outside. Plus the air compressor is very loud, and I don't want it inside the building. So we can get to that. We'll talk about spraying glazes. This summer when we get to fire the gas kiln, I'll definitely have big pieces, and I usually spray my glaze for larger pieces, so we'll do that. Bigger cookie plate with small cookie on it. Right, exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about, that like trough thing. Making tiles for your kitchen, you feel like you need 300 cookies as well. So do cookies need to be vitrified before kiln wash? Your cookies warp if you just bisque and put kiln wash on. So what I do when I dry my cookies is I dry them between two boards, just like I was making magnets or pendants or something, and I want them to stay really flat. And then I just stack them up and I fire them. I kiln wash, I would kiln wash and then use them. Can you reuse them? If nothing happens to them as far as glaze dripping on it, but often people will make cookies and just chuck them and make new ones. But it depends. You know, some people use them and have great results over and over. So everybody's like, show us. Make my chun blue for earthenware. So we would just have to make the melting temperature come down. Could it be done? It can be done. Because my chun blue was a cone 10 glaze, I brought down to cone 5, actually cone 6, but it works good at cone 5 too. So could we take it down to 0.5? We could, and actually I should teach you all a class on changing the temperature of your glaze. So if you have a glaze you make yourself and you want to try to either bring it up in temperature or bring it down, there's things you can do, and that is a whole class. So I'll have to put that on my board over there, and we'll do that, and I'll teach you all how to do it, and I'll see if I can do it for my chun for you guys. If I already discussed, you'll rewatch. So any info on crystalline glazes would be welcome. You have a nice older rebuilt kiln which has to be manually turned on. Guess cone packs and a thermocouple. Right, so you definitely want to have your cone packs, and I would use a pyrometer to measure your temperature so you can keep track of what's going on. I do not do crystalline glazes in my studio. They have to be fired with a certain firing temperature and schedule, so there's a lot that goes in to crystalline glazes. That would be a whole class too, but we can certainly get there, right? We can do that. So let's see. Try not to get any crystals near the bottom piece. Are we talking about using, so there's two types of crystallized glazes. There is the Mayo crystal glazes, which has inclusions in it. And then there are glazes that have in their makeup crystals but not chunks, and they bloom. The crystals will bloom as part of the firing. You grow your crystals during the firing. The Mayo glazes, is that what you're asking about? The Mayo crystalline glazes? Because if that's what you need, holding temps, lots of equipment. I know there's a lot, and there's a lot of learning. And the blooming, so that's an actual in the glaze, and it's a different firing schedule, and we can talk about those. That's a whole nother creature. That's totally different than any other firing you're going to do if you're going to do crystalline glazes, and you get great results, but it's a lot of runny glaze, a lot of tests, and a lot of work, but a lot of fun. Sometimes those are the most fun thing. So yeah, you want to know how to take a glaze down from 10 to 6. I put it on the list. Wait, I could do it right now. Let me get a pen. See if I got one in here. I think I took all my dry erase markers in the house. I might have one on the side. Yes, I do. We'll write it on the list. Taking cone 10 to cone 5. All right, you got it. It's on the list. Happened. All right. We could do a crystal. All right, so Drew just said we can do a crystal glaze class. So Breezy over there, we can do on YouTube, we can do a crystal glaze class. We totally can. Woo! Awesome. So I'm going to stay on till 2, and then I'm going to switch over. I'm going to end the broadcast, and I'll be back at 2:30 because I've got to set up. I'll be right there dipping and pouring, so I have to get my glazes pulled out and set up my everything for dipping and pouring glazes. And we'll talk more about glazes while I'm doing that. If you want to, I'll be willing to, but I'll stay till 2. So we'll keep going. And right, so Drew is saying about the crystalline glazes, it requires specific materials to act as a core for a crystal to grow around and certain firing parameters. Exactly. You're basically growing. It's actually amazing. You're growing your crystals on your pot. Yeah, it's so good. When I first started pottery years ago and I was seeing the crystalline glazes, I was just blown away, and I always was thinking, I would love to do that. And here we are almost 20 years, well, since I saw those, it's almost 20 years later, and I still haven't done it. Darn it, I have to get to that. We'll get to that. Drew, make me do it so we can get it done. So we have people who want to take cone 5 to cone 9, and you can, and I'll do it both ways. So there's different things for each, and there's more than one way to do it. And here's the thing, I'm going to teach you how to do it, but you have to test, and you'll have to do multiple tests. You'll probably have to mix up 4 or 5 different versions of that glaze and test them to get a result you may be happy with, you might not be happy with, and then test some more. So just know that it's a fabulous thing, but it's a lot of testing. But when you get done, you're going to have a glaze that does what you want. So it's a win, perfect win, right? All right, catching up. I see a lot of people want in that class. All right, so we got the crystalline glaze class. We got the changing the temperature of a glaze class, which is a good one. And let's see. You did 2 decades ago. So you did it. You did the in college decades ago. That was me too, Breezy. Yeah, I hear you. Don't worry about text bombing. You have questions. I want to answer them. So if you guys have any more glaze questions for me, I am finishing up with this Amico. This is the flambe. I have put 4 super duper gloppy glazes, layers of glaze on, and this will come out of the kiln on Sunday. We'll see what this looks like on Sunday. I've already written it in my journal. Mixing specific gravity class. We could talk about specific gravity. So that's the flambe and the copper red. And those new glazes, you definitely want to put them in gloppy and thick when you're brushing them on. So I've already started my next glaze firing kiln log. I just lost a leaf out of my book. I gotta get it. And then this was the Mako. This is the Mako we did the other day. I have to transfer that into my notes. And I have to pick up my little leaf that I got that's been in my notebook, because that's going to go in a pot eventually. I'm going to stick it on a piece. All right. Yeah, everybody loves the crystalline glazes. The pink chun. Yeah, pink chun can happen. So here's the thing. We have to use rare earth minerals to make that happen. And there's not very many of them. They're only mined in certain areas, and they're rare. So they're really expensive, but that's not the problem. Drew and I had a discussion about responsibility and what happens if we make this pink chun using rare earth minerals, and then there's a huge demand for it, and we need to like have all the supply. What happens if we use all that's available and there's no more? So we were just thinking, if we did that, would we be responsible people? I don't know. It's definitely not off the table. My chun pink is definitely something. I do have a pink glaze that I've been making for years, but it's not a chun pink. It's just a celadon pink. And we'll talk more about that, but yeah, that can happen. So you fire earthenware to cone 1 with slips. Is there a glaze formula for cone 1? Yes, there is. I fire earthenware, terracotta. So you don't usually do white. I do terracotta because the iron lets it go hotter. And I fire it to cone 1 or cone 2. I have a great clear glaze recipe. It's actually a satiny recipe. And it is, hold on, I gotta think. The artist that I got it from, I'll see if I can find it and I'll put it up. But it is, goodness, can't think of her name. So there's this really great ceramic artist who uses a lot of underglazes and does earthenware to cone 1 and cone 2. I'll find it and I'll put it up. We'll put it up on ClayShare for you guys. I don't think we have it. Kevin, the resources, do we have my cone 1/cone 2 clear glaze? No, he says. Nope, we don't have it. I could put it up. We can do that. Right, a Drew question. Can we get that free shipping on the pre-order? Did that get answered? Did we get an answer on that? So Drew's going to go in depth tomorrow. So Drew will be doing a stream tomorrow. And yeah, we'll talk. Drew and I will talk after this. We'll set everything up. There will be a broadcast tomorrow. And Drew can talk to you all about glazing. And I think I will just be happily painting my 14 cups. And I don't know if I'll be live tomorrow. Maybe, maybe not. I might take a day because I've been live every day for 5 days. So I might take a day. Can you put an iron-based decal on, fire it, and then use underglaze to color the decal to refire? Will the underglazes, I can't see. So the problem is you need to have the decal on and it has to melt in, right, to the glaze. And then if you add the underglaze and fire it again, kind of like a China paint, you could do it. But here's the issue. You fire the iron decals just hot enough to bisque temperature, so it's just hot enough for the glaze to soften up so that that decal can stick, right? If you put underglaze on and then you want to go hotter above the temperature you bisque fired that decal on, your decal's going to run. It's going to melt and run. So what I do is I use China paints instead, and then I do a overglaze enamel with the China paint, and then I do a China paint firing. So that's how I color in my iron decals, my iron oxide decals. I need a break, but you love seeing me. I am going to be back on Sunday though, definitely. So the pre-orders are going to need to be emailed to Drew directly. They are not on the website, so you'll need to contact him and you guys can work out the shipping and everything. Everybody's like, what's your email? I think it's Andrew@clayscapes.com, right? Put it up, Drew. It's your full name. It's Andrew@clayscapes.com.
So you want me to put it on the screen?
Let's make sure it's Andrew, not Drew. Oh, please repost the Amazon store. Yes. Live on YouTube is working. Lisa Naples, you got it. Exactly. Thank you, Joe. Joe on YouTube remembered for me. Lisa Naples. She has her, I think it's Naples, I think it's called Naples Clear, isn't it? Her and Lisa Wagner. Is it Elisa Wagner? Yeah, it's a Wagner Naples Clear. I think that's what it's actually called. Look it up online. You can go to Lisa Naples' website, and I believe that's where it is. But it's just a great clear glaze if you're firing a cone 1. I fired to cone 2 with it, so you could do either of those. And actually, Kev, you want to grab my plates from Refuge that I have the examples, the two, he's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, I know what they are.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. These are actually Laguna terracotta with white slip. This is Pilcher slip on it. So you can see the clay color. Yummy, rich red. So this is an earthenware. Normally you would fire it to 04. I took this to cone 2. So you can fire this to cone 2. And that glaze you're seeing is the Naples Wagner Clear. That's what it is. And it's a satin, not a high gloss. And it's beautiful. And this was slip with sgraffito on it. So you can see that right there.
Someone asked for the Amazon shop.
The Amazon shop? Yes, it's Andrew@clayscapespottery.com. All right, there you go. So yeah, I love her work. She's pretty awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. And when I was trying to take a low fire earthenware clay higher, she was my resource. She was the one I went to get the information I needed to know that I could push the clay hotter. And what I found is through testing, the terracottas, the red earthenwares, you can push. They get more brittle as they get hotter, but they still can go to cone 1 easily, and actually it vitrifies them. So when you take an earthenware clay and you push it to cone 1 or cone 2, you vitrify the clay, and that erases the issue with them being porous. So it's a workaround, right? So this is great. Now the white clay, the white earthenware, you can't really push it. It's not the same. You really got to keep that at low firing temps, or at least that's what I found. We have a question?
Yep. If you apply underglaze decals, can you then paint colored underglaze before or after bisque? I was thinking after bisque, then glaze and glaze fire.
Yes, you can. Yes. So if you do an underglaze decal on your greenware and then you bisque fire it, you can paint underglaze on and then glaze on top and fire it. The only thing I will tell you to be careful of is when you're painting in, sometimes if you're brushing on the line of the underglaze decal, you might blend it into your other color. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes those underglaze decals still smear if they haven't been glazed. Can Drew address opalescent glazes? I can talk about opalescent glazes. So just like the gem and opal, it's an optical illusion. And what happens is a glaze will opalize and it will have almost this effect of layers and depth. So it'll look like you have glaze on the surface, and then if you're looking down through, you have all these facets of color coming through. And they can be very subtle color shifts. Often opalescent glazes work best when you put one glaze on top of another. They really shine that way. My Chun Blue is an opalescent glaze, and by itself it's really gorgeous, but when you put it on top of something else, it even gets better. And that's because the zinc that's in it. And I don't know if it's true for all opalescent glazes, but I know a lot of them have it. And then I have some opalescent glazes that I used to use that have a lot of rutile in it. So it just depends what you're going for color and effect. But it's just that optical illusion. So if you put my chun blue on top of a brown or a black, you really get a lot of depth because you're seeing the other color and then the blue is kind of sitting on top. It's almost like what they're calling floats nowadays.
You got one on your 2167 from YouTube.
A question about my 2167? 2116 clear gel for me. It has for you. Maybe the Gersley and it causes it. And you've used Darvan 7. So mine doesn't gel. I mix mine up. Where is mine? Oh, it's over there. It's fairly thin is how I have mine. Because when I apply it, I just want a thin coat. I've never added deflocculant to it. I've not needed to. If it's working with the Darvan in it, but remember, deflocculant can cause it to gel a little bit too, right? So you might need to add a little water to it. It sounds to me like it's too thick for you. So try adding water and see if that works. Your studio might be dry enough that it's pulling a lot of moisture out while the glaze is sitting. So you might have to just keep adding water to it every time you want to use it to get it back to the consistency you need. Is it iridescent? It is not iridescent. Back to the opalescence glazes. They are not iridescent glazes. It's opal. So iridescent is the mother of pearl luster. But an opalescent glaze is not as shiny. It's like the next step down. It still has a yummy lusciousness to it. It's just not that super like oil slick, high shiny finish. Clear glaze is always thinner the better. Exactly. You want your clear glaze to be thinner than normal glaze. So when you see me glazing, we're going to dip and pour in a minute. And when you see me glazing with glazes, they will be kind of like the consistency of heavy cream, but I do my clear glaze the consistency of milk. Like you bring it down a bit. You don't want it to be that thick. Because if it's too thick, it will go cloudy just a bit. My clear glaze is less prone to that, but it still can do that. So it's a dipping, Larissa, but if you took a bit of it and you added some CMC gum to it, you could turn my clear glaze into a brushing glaze. Although I use my clear glaze as a brushing glaze. I brush it on all the time. All the time. I will dip my brush in and I'll just swoop it around and I glaze big plates with my clear all the time by brushing it on. No problem. So Drew, will you sell my clear? Drew has their own clear, so I think that they won't sell my clear, but you can make it. Oh, I see you don't have access to chemicals. That could be, I get that. That can be a problem. We need to find somebody who will just mix it up dry for you. And then you can, that's basically Drew. All right, so you mixed it kind of thin, but it gelled a lot in a month. So Gersley, yeah. And it could be your tap water reacting to the Gersley. And my solution for that is add some water to it, John, and see if that helps you out. Because if it's gelling, it's too thick. And it shouldn't be the Gersley, you know, causing a problem. And if you add water, it'll change the ratio. Everything should be okay. So try thinning it down with water and see if it helps. Do a test and see if it works. And your studio, you haven't used it in a month. That's actually a long time for a glaze to sit, and a lot can evaporate out in that period of time. So check that and see if that helps you. How do I get my hair to stay in place? I have it clipped up so tight right now, you wouldn't believe it. And I have it, you know, this isn't hairspray, it's just I've got a couple clips up, but I was planning on putting the whole thing up for the dipping and pour because we get a little crazy when we dip and pour. We do. We really do. All right, so can you switch one frit for another frit if you don't actually have the one on hand? So yes and no. I mean, yes, of course you can switch. What will happen is it will change the glaze. So what you need to do is test. It might be fine, but you might find out that it's not going to work and you need the other frit. So check it out and see if it works for you. I have done it in the past and it's been okay, but I have to tell you it hasn't been the best. Like it's not the optimal results. It will work, but it might not get you exactly what you want. So if you could order the frit you need, I'd do that. That's what I end up doing. I'll be making a glaze, looking at my frits. I'm like, oh, I got plenty of it. And then I'm in the middle of making it and I run out and then I just wait until I get more. I just have to go buy more. MMA style, Richard says. I'm like, that's right. That's exactly right. So Drew's gonna go over some specific gravity with you tomorrow, and that'll be good. He'll help you all out with specific gravity. So
noon tomorrow, maybe?
Drew, are you gonna, what time, Drew? We want to let everybody know. Is it noon?
Questions coming in from some of the channels.
Mm-hmm. What time, Drew? Are you gonna do it at noon? With leaves that I did the other day, just how do I glaze them? So that's my Chun Blue on top. The one that I did, that's the Sgraffito demo, I just put black Speedball Underglaze on the entire vase. I carved the whole thing. It's done now, carved. It's not been bisque fired. But the glaze on top is just my Chun Blue. And that's what creates that opalescence, because the black underneath gives this base for the Chun Blue to go on top and really shine. Now the Chun by itself, these are all Amico, so I don't have my Chun, is really a great glaze. But when you put it on top of black, put it on top of Clayscape's Pitch Black if you want to see something amazing. If I have time, I'll run into the house and grab my mug that has that combo on it. It's so good. Do glaze chemicals go bad over time? If you store them in a dry area, in a container little critters can't get in, as long as moisture is not getting in there, they can keep forever. I have some materials. Here's the thing. I buy materials in huge amounts, and apparently G200, which is a glaze material, they stopped mining that like years ago. I still have some because I bought so much, but I keep it sealed up really well so it doesn't go bad. So if you seal it up in a container, you know, if you can buy those 5-gallon buckets and keep it in that, seal your lid on good. There's other sealable containers you can use, but if you keep your dry material sealed up, it will be fine. Now, my zinc, sometimes moisture still gets in the zinc, and over time it'll ruin my zinc, and I have to get new zinc. And I have tried grinding it back down and using it. It's not the same. Once those pieces clump up, the zinc I just start fresh with new zinc. So my 2167, the best clear you've used, hoping to make it work as production glaze. It will work as a production glaze, John. Yeah, and I'm sorry you're having problems with it being too thick. Thin it down and see if that works. And adding the Darvan. I haven't had it gel on me in the studio, and I don't know if that's because I keep it really thin, and I often am glazing, so I'm always in the bucket. You know, I'm always checking on it and using it, and if I need to add water, I'm doing that. So, plus I'm always mixing new batches up because I go through it pretty fast. So Drew's like, chemicals don't go bad, but they do change. That's true. That's true. That's true. And so what he's saying by change is mines will go out. So if you're getting your cobalt right now from a supplier and it looks a certain way, a couple of years from now, if you order cobalt, it could change because it could be mined from a different source. So that mine will have a different chemical makeup and the blue might be slightly different. And that's what's happened to me with many ingredients. Kona F4 is one that was replaced. The G200 was one that breaks my heart because I have to tell you the G200 feldspar was in many of my glazes and it is good, so good. The substitute for G200 is Mahavir feldspar made by Laguna, and the substitute for Kona F4 is now Minspar. So those, that's your subs. All right, so we are going to be wrapping it up. You still have Albany Slip, which is gone now, yes. So the next broadcast will be at 2:30. I'll be dipping and pouring, and I've just got to get my glazes and everything straightened out and pull the pieces out. I'm going to dip and pour and move the camera gear because we're going to be over there. So we'll do that next. And then I'll be back at 4 o'clock for the giveaway. Don't forget, we're still giving stuff away today. All right, everyone. I will see you back here at 2:30 for the glazing demo. See you then.